Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with a special show for you tonight. It's the latest edition of Lions Den Latest, and yeah, we're going to reflect on a phenomenal season for Aston Villa's youth teams and youth academies, particularly the under-18s, and to go through all of that with me and to talk a little bit about potential futures for a number of these players is Charlie, aka Academy AVFC. And Charlie, first of all, great to have you on again. And just before we came onto the show, we talked about, reflecting on this season. And even on the last episode, we did you having some reflections on what a season it's been and what a variety of competitions and what experiences the lads have had. And it's been an unforgettable one, hasn't it?
Yeah, incredible, unprecedented season, really. Obviously, the FA Youth Cup would have been a massive achievement by itself, but obviously the players went on to speak about how it had been reinforced, and that means nothing without finishing off the league successes. So to come away with 3 trophies, as I say, I used the word unprecedented there, and I don't know the stats, but I'm pretty sure it's a relatively infrequently achieved scenario in academy football. So yeah, really satisfying way to end the season. A couple of amazing days at Villa Park with the players, a couple of unfamiliar goal scorers in Leon Ruth and TJ Carroll who will cherish those moments. And the thing that I always reinforce with academy football is that there will be players from these groups who don't make it. And for them to have those brilliant memories is something that they'll hold on to forever. So hopefully everyone does go on to have stellar senior careers, but undoubtedly there will be some who don't. And that's the thing that gives me the most satisfaction from these days is that these players are having these brilliant experiences and something that they'll treasure.
Absolutely. And guys, please do smash the like button and hit that subscribe button. We're going to get into all of it. We're going to obviously talk about the history makers, the under-18 side, and so many wonderful players and wonderful performances, and so exciting. But we're going to cover all of the competitions that Villa are in, and as I say, talk a little bit about what the future holds for some of them. So let's talk about, because all the focus is on the under-18s and rightly so, but we also had the under-21s in PL2, and I guess a number of those featured in the Birmingham Senior Cup, and that was a pretty decent run in that competition as well, Charlie. So yeah, just reflect on those under-21s who I guess kind of had a bit of a what would be the word? Bit of a sort of stop-start season in the fact of some of them went out on loan, and a number of players moved up from the under-18s and in and out of that side. So yeah, just reflect on them.
Yeah, an interesting one. Obviously, you look at the league table in PL2 this season, and Villa are propping up the table. They finished bottom of the Premier League 2 table. I think the caveat with that is that league position isn't always hugely important. While it's one metric of dictating success at this level, I'd argue a bigger metric would be how you can create that pathway for players to come in. And when you consider the amount of players that are out on loan, I think, probably the players involved in that will look back on that with a tinge of disappointment. But ultimately, these are learning experiences. And again, I've referenced before the types of sort of learnings that players can take from these difficult seasons and different situations that they end up in. And they can use that to help go on and build build blocks for a stellar senior career. I think the other thing to consider is it's talked about quite a lot in senior football about fixture congestion and managing the European fixtures, and it's hard to quantify exactly how that made much of a difference to this Premier League 2 season. But again, that's another factor of which to consider, but also another experience that these players will benefit from, because that management of fixtures and management of schedule is a really important part of becoming a pro. In terms of players, I think we've seen players grow throughout this season. I think we've seen Todd Alcock continuing that sort of leader role where he's kind of the standout figure, always putting in sort of a 6 or 7 out of 10, and filling in a number of different positions for the under-21s. He was also a key figure in that Senior Cup run to the quarterfinals. And yeah, just again, nice to see at times quite a turnover of players. There's been a lot of different names featuring those under-21s this season, and yeah, just really nice to see some of the players put in some of the performances that they have, without quite necessarily getting the results that those performances deserved.
Sure, and just in reflection on that, I know it's under 20, obviously under 21, so you can obviously be up to that age band. But what was the kind of age bracket that were generally playing in those teams? And who you mentioned Todd Alcock, but who else are we looking at who potentially could, graduate into training along with the first team, or potentially getting another contract, that type of thing, because it's a key age for them, isn't it? This point.
So yeah, I think you look at players like Travis Patterson, who went out on loan in the second half of the season. Players like your Sam Proctors, who had a really successful season, while not necessarily in Premier League 2, but in other competitions. They were key figures for this team. And then it's about the development of the players in those other roles. I think Thierry Katsakunya can look back and probably say that he's had a stellar season in terms of development, in terms of becoming that sort of key leadership figure for the 21s. And then if you look back at the the earlier part of the season, I should say, where performances tended to be a little bit better, we were getting a few more results at the earlier part of the season. Players like Ben Brodjo, who really shot onto the scene this season with quite a quick start to the season, notched up a few goals, was catching the eye with some assists. Again, made a bit more of a name for himself in other competitions. And yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, I think the players will probably look back and be disappointed with the way things have gone, not getting more wins on the board. But yeah, it's hard not to factor in the bigger picture when we talk about some of the names there, and the way that they're going to get involved in first team affairs as we think about pre-season next summer.
Yeah, well, it's going to, like I say, it's going to be interesting for a lot of those players, and probably a bit of an uncertain one right now in terms of what their future holds. But obviously, wish them all the best. The ones that are kind of at the end of the sort of under 21s band. With regards to Europe, you mentioned kind of some of those players contributing to some of the games in the UEFA Youth League. I'm right in saying the UEFA Youth League's under 19s. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think we see a bit of a blend of the two core academy groups. It will be some players who train up with the or play up with the under-21s while qualifying for an under-19 age bracket, and then some of the under-18s who sort of bulk out the squad in that competition.
But they had a great experience, and I guess potentially even surprising themselves. And you followed them a couple of games, but the Puskás Academy, a great experience going there, and then playing Barcelona. It must have been a bit of an unforgettable one for that age group to kind of experience that, and some of the highs and lows of that competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I one of the aspects of that Barcelona game that I don't think we've mentioned is there seemed to be a bit of a gathering of the players after the game as well, and I always think that's a nice enriching experience for a player's development, is to have that exposure to maybe chat a little bit of football with players from another country, and share some ideas perhaps, and the way things are done differently in a different culture, and obviously one of the most famous academies in the world at Barcelona. And yeah, amazing experiences. The last minute win at RB Leipzig to get them through to the knockout stages was probably one of my favourite moments of the season. To be honest, that was a really exciting one, kind of led by Ben Brodjo's penalty and a couple of clutch moments from Jamal Aloba, and a really impressive performance from George Hemmings on that afternoon. You mentioned the win at Puskás Academia, where we saw a couple of different players, I should say, step into the limelight. That was a really impressive performance, I thought, from Charlie Pavey on that afternoon. Someone who's kind of been on the periphery a little bit at times with the 21s. And yeah, it was nice to see him come to the fore and really have a moment to look back on. And yeah, the overriding feeling for me, looking back on that UEFA Youth League campaign, is just how at ease we looked in the competition, not overawed by any of the names, any of the prestigious talent that we were coming up against. Obviously, we came up against Bayern Munich and Juventus, and these are big clubs who bring through talent from their academies, and so it's impressive to be able to compete so easily with these teams. And yeah, obviously, with the under-18s claiming the national title, we'll be back in that competition next year, irrespective of the senior team's performance.
Yeah, well, let's get on to the kind of history makers, as we've said, the under-18 side that I think have exceeded all expectations. I mean, I'm sure they know they've got some really good players, and Aston Villa have really done hard work to revamp the academy structure and sign a lot of players from across Europe, across the best academies across the Midlands, over in Ireland as well. So lots of scouts and lots of work done on the structure and how they bring these players in. But I mean, to do the treble, to win the South region, to win the FA Youth Cup, and then to win the national title against Man City, who they beat in the FA Youth Cup as well. And I guess that Man City side that's so touted, that has so much riches, that has so many scouts scouring the world for the top talent, just shows how good and how well coached and the achievements of the players to win those 3 trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I've sort of coined this team is champions of the process, and that's really the thing that has impressed me most about this team, is that it's not really been a league title guided by one player's performance or a couple of players' performances. This has been a team effort. There's been different players contributing at different times when needed, when maybe players have gone up to play for the under-21s. We've seen some of the under-16s boys come in and contribute heavily towards this success. I've spoken before about my appreciation for the impact Jimmy Shan has had since coming in. I think you can really see a tangible difference in the way that the players play with belief that they're going to win. And I mentioned this in my Substack newsletter on the afternoon of the win, is that it was almost as though Villa had decided in that under-18 Premier League national final that they weren't going to concede, and you could see that belief almost just grow throughout the game. The belief that they've got one of the best goalkeepers in English academy football in Sam Proctor, and a partnership at centre back that's been unbelievable throughout the season, Leon Ruth and TJ Carroll, 2 fullbacks who have been who provide something really brilliant and have, I'm sure, amazing futures ahead of them in Rodrigo Fortes and Tristan Rowe. And that's just 5 names there out of 11, and you could even say 14. There were 3 subs who came on, maybe even 4, who each did their job, and that's what I mean by champions of the process. They know their job, they execute, and they know how to win, and that's one of the key things that I've taken from this team this season, is that Jimmy Shan's coaching has instilled an unbecoming ability to win that is so infrequently seen, I think, in academy football. I think sometimes academy teams can have a tendency to wilt in pressure moments, and this team grows. This team grows when the cards get down.
Yeah, and you talk about process, and the goal was scored from another well-worked set piece, and that seems to be, again, you talked in the last episode about kind of having some elements of how the first team operate, and the set piece structure, the way that they can play through the lines, but then also the way that they can play quickly into transition. But also they've got their own personality, and some of the players can crop up in the big moments. Gimo Aloba, and Mason Kocher, and one or two others. It's a real good blend.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, it comes back to what I was saying just there about this really being a team effort. I think you can mention Mason Kocher or Brad Burrows, or trying to think who was playing on the left. But yeah, you can mention these names, and they're attacking players, and it's not the attacking players who have had the moments in these big games. It's players a little bit further back, the centre backs, or Cole Brannigan, who's a 10, or Gimo Aloba, who's playing a bit of a different role for this side than the one he will probably go on to have in senior football. And again, that's such an admirable thing about an academy team, is that this unselfishness, this giving up of their own mindset almost to commit themselves to a greater cause. And I thought it was so reminiscent of a senior side grinding their way out to a win in a big game. Whether that be comparable to Palace at the weekend, winning the FA Cup final, almost sort of dragging themselves over the line with some defending at the end. I thought it was really comparable to, as I say, a senior side, knowing that they're having to suffer, choosing their moments to suffer, but then pinching a goal with excellent attacking players and excellent set piece routines that really do bring to the fore the quality of the coaching that these players are receiving as well.
And with regards to the three, there as that's Cole Brannigan, isn't it? Celebrating
Teddy Bloomfield.
Teddy Bloomfield. My bad. Teddy. Sorry, Teddy. He's the character, isn't he? He's the one who throws himself into all the tackles. Yeah. How much? I know you have some conversations with some of the players, and they sort of speak to you, but like, off of achieving this, how much of a surprise is it to them, or did they go into the season with expectations that they could win the league and win the FA Youth Cup?
I think inwardly the club would always say that they want to have a team that believes that they can win the FA Youth Cup. Why not? Villa's got a really brilliant history of competing in the FA Youth Cup, and again, I think inwardly they would say they know that they've got a squad who on their day can compete with any academy in the country. Whether the belief would have been there at the start of the season that they can go out and win everything that there is to offer, I think is a different matter. I think that's something where it became apparent throughout the course of the season that this was a possibility. But again, I go back to that that point of mentality, and it's almost as though a switch can get flicked at times with this team, where they know this is the moment where we can do something that's really, really bigger than the sum of winning a game or winning a couple of games. We can go on to do something really, really seismic and achieve something that not many teams have done before.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what a season it's been for them. And I think they can look back on this, like you said, with immense pride and what an achievement it's been. I think now, because of the reputation of the likes of Manchester City and Chelsea, I imagine, and one or two of the other sort of, in quotes, bigger academies or ones that can scour the world for talent. Aston Villa now is in that name, and maybe some players who weren't necessarily on the radar of clubs or of scouts across the world are probably there now. So how do you see, some of the sort of the medium to or short to medium term futures looking for some of these young lads? We've seen Ben Broggio get one or two little appearances with the first team, and obviously he's had an injury, but I'm sure he was training with the first team quite regularly. Jimo Aloba's done the same. Obviously, we've seen Lamar Bogard be more regular with the first team, but we've seen Tristan Rowe now linked to championship clubs for loan spells. We've seen George Hemmings getting absolute rave reviews, and now talk about him going out on loan. So, yeah, what are we talking about with these lads? Are they going to all of a sudden get accelerated? Is their sort of careers going to be fast tracked now? What do you think?
I think there will be a clear pathway set out internally at the club, and let's not get it twisted. A lot of these players have scarcely played under 21 football. I think you can pick out a handful of names in that under 18 squad that played at the weekend and say, yeah, you're ready to go out on loan. Tristan Rowe is the prime example. He's got a wealth of under 21 football behind him, and was really coming in to sort of strengthen that under 21 side in the FA Youth Cup and national playoff final. You could say the same of maybe Mason Kocher. He's probably got to play a bit more under 21 football and will probably be rotating with Rory Wilson in that starting position next season. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. But I think if you were to offer the possibility of, for example, a George Hemmings, someone who's going to benefit from experiencing the rigors of men's football, the physicality, the things that you don't probably get the opportunity to learn so much in academy football because you're not playing against men, you're playing against age mates. I think it would be a brilliant opportunity. Realistically, I don't think he's going to go on loan. I would like to see a season in under 21 football.
Yeah. But this is the thing though, like, these type of, when they win competitions like this, it puts them on the map, doesn't it? So all of a sudden a League One or a League Two manager, or I don't know if Villa would put people into the conference, but in the National League, but let's say League One or League Two, all of a sudden it's like, well, why not? I know sometimes you can say it can harm their development, but depending on the character of the player, it'll be like, well, look, let's see what they can do. All of a sudden it becomes they're wanted players rather than like, trying to give them something when they're sort of 19, 20.
And I think that's probably where the development of the role of loan manager has come in, because I think if Villa are to entertain this type of offer for this caliber of player, they've got to be really specific about the environment that they're going into. Are they going to get the minutes that are going to help their development? Are they going to be in an environment where maybe they're playing a similar type of football to what Villa will want them to play? So, if opportunities do come up, it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. Certainly a few names that selfishly I would like to stay at Villa just so I can watch them a little bit more often. George Hemmings, Cole Brannigan, who I think probably won't go on loan. So I'm really excited to see how they kick on in Premier League 2 next season. Rodrigo Fortes is another one who really has the tools to become a really impressive forward-thinking fullback. So really excited to potentially see a bit more of him more consistently for the 21s next season.
Excellent. And then I guess moving into next season, you mentioned Broggio's coming back from injury, Wilson, who's had a bit of a injury hit turbulent season this year as well, so he probably comes back into the frame. But what does the future hold? I mean, how many move up into that under 21s section? How many players move into that under 18s regular section? I mean, Jack McGrath, one or two others you've mentioned on this show. So yeah, what does the future hold in terms of like the way that they're going to move through the age groups?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing to enjoy about academy football is that it's a constant cycle of talent emerging, and you'll see different names come through. Some of the names who have been featuring for England under-15s over this break, Heaven Kilwer and Josh Blake, who have been recognised internationally and have scored on this international break for England under-15. So I'm sure we'll see them come into the fray a little bit more for the under-18s, possibly at times next season. But yeah, there's an underbelly of names that have sort of chopped and changed and been involved with the under-18s this season. Players like Vinnie Hayward, Woody Burgess has captained this side at times, but wasn't included in the squad on Saturday. That's how much talent there is that qualifies for an under-18 squad within this group. So again, without knowing too much about how this pathway will develop, I'm really excited to see again which players make that step up to the under-21s, which players stick around in the under-18s, and how the management team and also the players deal with the increased attention that will come on them now as treble winners, because there'll be a name for teams to beat next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you've got your ear to the ground of any potential new players to come in. Obviously, they've got scouting networks around. You got any ear to the ground of any future rising stars that we might be looking at across the country?
I really like what I see. Well, if you're thinking about players already at Villa, I really like what I see from Heaven Kilwer. I posted a clip the other day of his goal for England under-15s, and it's an absolute rocket. It reminded me a bit of Fabian Delph's goal at St Mary's, where he sort of pings it into the top corner. Incredible goal. So yeah, he's a bit of an electric winger, but also clearly got some excellent ball striking as well. So again, will be interesting to see how that develops. Players who have been putting up goals for the under-16s. Dana Dediran has also been part of an England under-15 training camp and has been putting goals and goals and goals away for the under-16s, I think, this season. A couple of names who I know have been recognised nationally. Lennon Moss, who has played for Wales under-17s while not having played for our under-18s this season, is an achievement in itself. So again, will be nice to see him come through and have some minutes for the under-18s next season. And then, yeah, thinking just about the significance of this treble win is that this does make Villa a more appealing project and make them more competitive when we're talking about the external recruitment.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the calibre of Man City or of Chelsea or of Arsenal, I think this does give Villa a bit more standing to compete for players in those markets where those teams are involved. And so I think wait and see, but it'll be interesting to see if we do pick up any talent from across the country.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be really interesting. I mean, just thinking now while you were chatting and you talk about so many of these young players who've got so much talent, and under-15s that are in England setups, under-16s that are the same, and we've got players internationally at their age groups across the academy. But how likely now do you see it being that a player at 6? And I know it was never very, very often anyway, because we remember them. We remember the Wayne Rooneys. We remember the Michael Owens. I mean, I don't know if you're probably too young for that, but like, how likely is it that you would get a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old that will just burst on the scene for a first team, like, and just be developed as a man already and just come straight into the Premier League? Like, how likely is that to happen at say Villa?
I think you've got to have a bit of a perfect storm of things to come together for that to happen. I think you've got to have maybe injuries that are occurring in the first team, or a competition that the club maybe aren't prioritising as much. And we've seen with Chelsea this season, they've been enabled to play 16, 17-year-olds, give them their senior debuts in the Conference League because they can. And that's where these competitions actually play a role in the development of players, because if Chelsea were in even the Europa League this season, they wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, I think it's probably going to become more of a rarity going forward in football. And I think that owes to the pragmatic nature of senior football. I think managers are less inclined to take a risk on something like that, but also the increase in player welfare and things like that, because not every 16, 17-year-old who you think might be capable of playing at that level takes to that level immediately, and ultimately that can sometimes be the turning point of their career. It could actually have a negative effect on them.
Yeah.
And so I think the psychology and the player welfare aspect of things maybe decreases the possibility of something like that happening. And then on top of everything that I've just mentioned, you've got to have a player that is generationally talented, because the players that you mentioned there, your Wayne Rooney's, your if we think about Lamine Yamal, these are players who have gone on to become serious all-timers. And it's crazy that I'm saying that about Lamine Yamal while he's still 17, but you've got to have a player who almost is identified that way by the club, but then also a coaching staff that are trusting enough to know that they can give an opportunity to this player. And it works both ways, right? You've got to sort of show that you're capable of delivering that as well. So I always talk about that first involvement. You've got to be able to almost show your worth to a manager and sort of earn that position should it come up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, it's been an incredible season and so many competitions. I didn't even mention the EFL trophy and what the players did in that to take Bradford so close as well. And Bradford took it, pretty fairly seriously as well. So yeah, that was great. I think they were the longest. Were Villa the team that lasted the longest of the under-21s in that competition?
They were the last academy standing, and again, just thinking about that run, it harks back to some of the things that I mentioned there, the character and the resilience of this side when put up against a wall, beating Bolton on penalties with what was essentially an under-18s team, taking Blackpool to penalties and beating them in one of the longest penalty shootouts that you'll ever see. So it just rings true to some of the things that we've spoken there about resilience and character, and these are traits actually that I think the more that I see this team develop, these are traits that really contribute towards the success of a senior player.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that I'm seeing this, because it's a contrast to seeing maybe a Grealish come through who's outstanding talent-wise, but again, maybe had a bit of a learning curve when he came into the senior team. And I like that I'm seeing characteristics from these players that kind of suggest maturity and that ability to sort of fit right into a team ethic that a first team or a senior team or a lone team is going to need.
Yeah, well, as the old saying goes, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So there you go. Charlie, fantastic stuff, mate. And we'll be back, I'm sure, over the summer to discuss some of the potential incomings and outgoings for the youth players. When some of them go out on loan, we'll discuss their futures and look at that. And we'll also look at reflecting on some of them that I'm sure will go on pre-season tours and see how they're getting on with the first team. So, and we'll be back as well next season for UEFA Youth League, FA Youth Cup again, under 18s, under 21s, and you name it, we'll be here. So thank you for all of your help this season. It's been a tremendous season, and we've had some great feedback from you on these shows. So wonderful stuff, mate. Thank you for giving up your time to come on the channel as well. And I think we've shone a light a little bit on the academy side as well. And I know they're going to do a little bit more with them next season, the first team. So if I'm sure you've had a huge impact on that. But if we've had any part on that then I'm really grateful to you for being on the show.
Yeah, I always appreciate having the opportunity to speak about these boys with a little bit more depth than I get to cover them on Twitter or wherever you're following the updates. So yeah, and obviously I appreciate being given the platform to discuss some of the things that we've discussed throughout the season, and I'd also just like to mention the supremely talented crop of players that we have, because without them there wouldn't be anything to discuss and give us the content that we've had throughout the season too.
Here. Great stuff, lads. And I'm sure you do watch, so well done to you all, and wish you all the best for this next season coming up. Take your rest now and then train hard in the summer and get ready for a big season ahead. And as I say, I hope to see some of you playing in the first team as well. So yeah, great stuff, lads. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We'll be back with a special fans forum on Tuesday night. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We've got more special guests for you on that show. We'll also be previewing Manchester United coming up on Sunday as well later this week, and some more transfer talk rumour shows which have gone down absolutely fantastically well. Our subscribers have absolutely rocketed up these last few days, so amazing support. Thank you so much. We want to hit 6k as soon as we can, so please do like and subscribe and get your comments in. Charlie, once again, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching, and as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.